Interesuje mnie, jakim on był człowiekiem tak naprawdę, jaką miał konstrukcję psychiczną, dlaczego dokonywał takich wyborów, jakim był człowiekiem od strony właśnie takiej motywacji.
Był człowiekiem bardzo silnym, mocnym, przede wszystkim psychicznie. Chciał może pokazać, że stać go na coś więcej. Chciał pokazać swoją klasę w górach. No myślę, że mu się to udało.
Jerzy Kukuczka, in my view, from 1980 up to 1989, he was the leading climber worldwide in high altitude for the fact that he was mentally and physically very strong. But the most important thing, he was very straightforward. He decided and he went. He did not long discussions. He was not a philosopher, but he was a man able to support cold, to support also loneliness, to support exposure, staying 3-4 days in an ice hole and waiting for better weather and going out in the right moment and going to the summit. And so he could do a lot of great achievements, especially on the 8,000 meter peaks.
At my times, he was the best Himalayan climber. He also climbed all 14 8,000 meter peaks in only 8 years. Messner, superb mountaineer, but it took him 16 years. So I am not of the feeling to say this one is better and this is not, because it always depends on the circumstances or so. But I always admired and still admire Jerzy.
But of all those climbers, Kukuczka was the one who did it with grace. He became the best person he could be in the mountains, and the mountains made Kukuczka. He inspired countless Polish people with his accomplishments. And even though they weren't climbers and they didn't understand sort of the subtlety of what he was doing, there wasn't an alpinist in the world who didn't understand what he had done to raise the bar in Himalayan climbing.
Jurek był taką nietuzinkową postacią, ale nie był otwartą, taką bardzo, nie miał takiej osobowości bardzo otwartej. Po drugie, jak coś mówił, to z sensem i mało. Raczej więcej słuchał niż mówił, ale swoje robił. On się nie poddawał, to nieważne, czy sezon się kończył, nie kończył, czy były bułki, czy nie było. Jurek parł do przodu.
Był synem górali i stebniańskich. W żyłach jego płynęła krew góralska. Był człowiekiem upartym, bo przecież wszyscy górale są tacy. Nie odpuścił, dążył do celu, to co sobie zaplanował, to wszystko chciał dokonać.
Whatever he thought he was going to do, he did it. No matter what, no matter bad weather, no matter if he was sick. He was never complaining.
Dobrze się urodził w dobrym czasie. I ja również. I moi przyjaciele. Dzięki temu, że się urodził w dobrym czasie, to miał możliwość pisania historii. I ją bardzo ładnie zapisał.
He used to shout, to blaspheme, to say kurwa, but in the bottom of his heart, he was not really complaining. He was a man who accepted the situation and then play the game in this situation.
Raczej były cały czas góry, wyprawy, wyjazdy. Bardzo go to ciągnęło, bardzo go to interesowało i nawet czasami byłam bardzo zła na niego, bo nigdy nie mogliśmy sobie gdzieś wypocząć wspólnie razem, na przykład gdzieś nad morzem czy nad jakąś wodą.
Każdy z tych szczytów, każda z tej wyprawy miała w sobie swoje Najbardziej właściwie wspominam wyprawę na Makalu, wtedy kiedy wchodziłem solo, sam. I to dało mi najwięcej wrażeń, najwięcej po prostu mnie kosztowało też wysiłku, ale dało największą satysfakcję. Jeżeli chodzi o te przykre doświadczenia, no to te przykre doświadczenia zawsze są związane z tragediami wtedy, kiedy ginie przyjaciel.
Kiedy poznaliśmy się, był właśnie w bardzo złym stanie psychicznym, ponieważ zginął jego najbliższy przyjaciel. Kolega z liny, Piotr Skorupa, bardzo przeżył tę jego śmierć. W Tatrach zginął. Ale nadal kontynuował swoją wspinaczkę. Po Tatrach były Alpy, Dolomity, góry Nowej Zelandii. I tak obserwowałam cały czas te jego dokonania. Za bardzo się na tej wspinaczce wówczas nie znałam.
He was very unlucky. He lost his companion, and but he was lucky that he wasn't also going down.
Some people saw him just as an incredibly strong climber, strong like a bull. Others saw him more as a very talented climber, great climbing skills. Some people thought he was lucky, very lucky to have survived for as long as he did, particularly considering how many of his climbing partners were killed while they were climbing with him.
He loved the mountains. He was full of life up there. Maybe if you see him in the street, you could not believe he was the best climber on those years. But up there in the mountains, he was so strong.
A Mexican alpinist, Carlos Carsolio, who was a frequent climbing partner of Kukuczka, believes that he was not only Poland's best Himalayan climber, but that he was the best Himalayan climber that ever existed.
Let's stay on the 8,000-meter peaks because this is our playground. It was our playground, Kukuczka and my playground. Nobody on the world could climb an 8,000-meter peak. The logistics were not there, the knowledge were not there, the capability was not there. And afterwards, in 14 years, people learned to climb them. And French people, Herzog, Lachenal, Germans, Austrians exactly, Americans, Italians, British especially, Japanese, they climbed all the 8,000-meter peaks. It became not easy, but it was quite obvious how to handle it. It needed only to break the barrier with Herzog and Lachenal, especially afterwards with Hillary and Tenzing on Everest. And this style, these logistics, were used by everybody. Nobody did in reality in the 50s or the 60s a totally different style.
We wczesnych latach 50., 60., 70. góry jednak były polem eksploracji przede wszystkim. Jest coś takiego w głowie człowieka, że człowiek chce eksplorować, czyli odkrywać nieodkryte, zdobywać niezdobyte. I do tego trzeba mieć duszę eksploratora. Ja trochę zazdroszczę tym moim poprzednikom, którzy znów się dobrze urodzili, można powiedzieć.
Bardzo nie lubię chodzić po drogach utartych. Między innymi to mnie ciągnie w góry, że tam jest dużo niewiadomego, dużo rzeczy jeszcze nieodkrytych i dlatego kiedykolwiek będę miał możliwość, zawsze pójdę, jeżeli będę miał wybór jakiś, zawsze wybiorę tą drogę, gdzie jeszcze nikogo nie było.
You are touching something I don't know how to say that. Something that has been away from humans, hidden, since the beginning of creation. So when you get to that place, it's like you are entering the beginning of creation. It's fantastic. I remember on the first ascent of Dhaulagiri, when the summit got in sight, and it was sure this was really the summit, finally. In this moment, just looking, I had that feeling, this is the last moment. Now it's changing. Something goes away, but also goes to us. It's undescribable.
What Pohl and Timberger and Wintersteller and the last one, Schmuck, did on Broadpeak was one step beyond, because they didn't use local high altitude borders, but they put up fixed ropes, they put camps in. They did it in a style where they did all the work by themselves. For this, they have a great respect. They approached a new view, but not a new style in reality. And only in the second period of the conquering of the difficult walls, the whole thing changed again.
No, były to czasy troszeczkę inne. Były lata 80., kiedy zorganizować wyprawę było w ogóle bardzo trudno. Przecież wiadomo, w Polsce nie było nic, nie było sprzętu dobrego, nie było jedzenia, nie było... Zorganizować wyprawę to naprawdę był wielki wyczyn. Bardzo lubiał jeść, bardzo lubiał mięso. W latach 80., jak wylatywały wyprawy, często mieli zaopatrzenie z magazynów wojskowych. No, w tych wojskowych magazynach brali żywność, która nie była opisana. Ponieważ bardzo lubił mięso, podobno poznawał puszki, które były z szynką, a które były z golonką. Wąchał i po prostu poznawał, bo puszki były nieopisane, gdzie było golonko, a gdzie była szynka. Miał ksywę Mister Golonko.
Oczywiście największe trudności to przede wszystkim pogoda. Trzeba mieć dużo szczęścia do pogody. To jest podstawa właściwie. Jeżeli pogoda dopisze i ma się łód szczęścia, trochę szczęścia, to właściwie wszystko w górach.
And only in 75 I was mature enough to understand this is not anymore the future. We change style. And from this moment onwards, I was only interested in style. It means going alone on an 8,000 meter peak, going without oxygen everywhere, going in alpine style, combining 2 8,000 meter peaks.
Now, say pure style, of course, you will need also fix ropes in some way, but you can still say climb without oxygen mask. So both of them climbed without oxygen mask.
Kukuczka and Messner were innovators. They wanted to climb by his own way and by his own set of rules. And this set of rules was very strict. So they wanted to climb with no oxygen, by hard new routes, alpine style. That was the dream. And in fact, this is the dream of every passionate climber.
Some people talk about Kukuczka's vision of climbing all 14 of the 8,000-meter peaks, and I don't really agree with that. I don't think it was his vision. That was Messner's vision. It was not to say that Kukuczka didn't have a vision. He did, and it was very specific. His idea of climbing the 8,000-meter peaks was to climb them in a certain style. And for him, that style included either a new route or to climb them in winter. And this set the standard for Himalayan climbing very, very high. That was his vision, completely different than Messner's.
It was a different play, it was not a joke, it was a play. But it was not a competition.
Chyba miał głęboko zakorzenioną też potrzebę sukcesu. Po prostu on może o tym nie mówił, ale wiem, że Jurek bardzo chciał odnosić sukcesy i odnosił, bo to właściwie dowartościowywało go również. W związku z tym wydaje mi się, że też był taki element, który spowodował, że dał się wciągnąć w rywalizację z Reinholdem Messnerem.
I think there was not a competition at all in up to a certain number of 8,000-meter peaks. But for the last 2 or 3 8,000-meter peaks, it was a competition. For sure, it was a competition from the side of Reinhold. I do not know whether Jurek was thinking that way, but he may also have thought in the end.
Media spowodowały, że Jurek poprzez to, że miał cholerną potrzebę rywalizacji i odnoszenia sukcesów, dał się sprowokować.
Mass media, they blow it up to make a bigger thing from a small thing, and that's what happened then.
I don't think it was even so much a matter of whether he was going to win this race or lose this race. It was about the race and the way it was perceived. He was the underdog, clearly, and Messner was the front runner, clearly. Everybody favors the underdog. And for Kukuczka, it was a way for him to, first of all, become somewhat famous, and secondly, to be funded. And that was incredibly important for a climber like Kukuczka, to find media support and financial support to fulfill his dreams. And I think that takes strategic intelligence.
In fact, there was a commercial competition, and it helped both of them. For Messner was good. He had more media coverage, also Kukuczka. So it was good for everybody on their expeditions.
No doubt is that Reinhold, also in this very last stage of this 8,000-meter climb, he had a better organization. Because when he climbed Lhotse, when he climbed Makalu, he also took in account other expeditions. Yeah. Jurek, he wanted just to do a real pure style climb of his 8,000-meter peaks.
Nie, to było zawodnictwo rozdmuchane przez dziennikarzy. Nie mogło być takiego wyścigu, ponieważ w górach są ekstremalne warunki. W górach nie ma wyścigu, nie może być. Poza tym pan Messner zaczął dużo wcześniej od Jurka zdobywać ośmiotysięczniki. Kiedy Jerzy był na Manaslu, brakowało mu jeszcze 3 szczytów do zdobycia korony Himalajów. Pan Messner zdobył swój ostatni szczyt Lhotse. No myślę, że może troszeczkę zrobiło mu się żal, tak myślę, że to nie on pierwszy, ale również troszkę się uspokoił, troszkę się wyciszył i chyba odetchnął z ulgą, że teraz już spokojnie będzie kontynuował to, co sobie założył.
We had a totally different approach to the mountains. You have to know that I did my most difficult ascents in the 70s. We met a moment after Lhotse in 79 when he finally climbed his first 8,000 meter peak. But in this moment, more than half of my activities on the 8,000 meter peaks were done. And up to the 80s, it was not either thinkable to do the 8,000 meter peaks. It means all of them. Because it was forbidden, it was not allowed to go into China, it was not allowed to do Kanchenjunga for many years. And only in the 80s it became possible. And after Everest in a solo ascent, I understood quite easily that my time on the high peaks is gone. I should do something else because I could not go higher. Going afterwards for 3 8,000 meter peaks in one season, in 82, I understood that the 4 missing 8,000 meter peaks I can do maybe in one summer. I could not do on the end in one summer, but anyway, it was for me a possibility to finish these 8,000 meter peaks, but still not in competition with Jerzy Kukuczka. In the last years, in 85 and 86, the mass media, especially in Poland, but also in Germany and Italy, begin to put up this construction, this competition, because for them it was easier to sell a competition story than 2 single climbers going here and there. But Jerzy and myself, we were not in a real competition because we were never on the same line on one of the big peaks.
Bardzo nie lubię, jeżeli to, co było między mną a Reinholdem, nazywa się wyścigiem, bo jeżeli to brać w takich kategoriach, sportowych kategoriach, to przede wszystkim musiałby być wspólny start i musielibyśmy się wspinać w tych samych warunkach. Tego nigdy nie było i nigdy w górach nie będzie. Owszem, na pewno konkurowaliśmy ze sobą w pewnym sensie, ale to nie można tego traktować jako wyścig.
Kukuczka, who has climbed all the 14 8,000 meter peaks only in 8 years. My God.
Bardzo pięknie się pan Messner zachował, wysyłając do Jurka depeszę ze słowami: nie jesteś drugi, jesteś wielki. Bardzo cenimy sobie te słowa.
And I think that we, especially Kukuczka and myself, we found our possibilities to have strong emotions, to have great inner feelings. We call it adventure. Because we went to our limits in the winter, alone, in a very small expedition, Alpine-style expedition on K2. I think the biggest ascent Kukuczka ever did is the south face of K2, a beautiful line. I tried it, we failed in the middle of the wall. We escaped quite quickly, and he did it on the end, and I was applauding. Today, Kukuczka is in my museum as the hero of the last 30 years for the fact that I know what he could live as emotions in himself during his great period. Not for his record, but means a record. A record is something for the normal sports people. We are not only sport people, we are adventurers.
In every aspect of human life, explorers want to reach new heights, new places. And this is the same for the science, for the engineering, for whatever the man is involved in. So in every specialty there is a group who looks for new challenges. That's the way humans reach the moon and how we will reach the stars.
We understand that we are human beings, we are breakable, we are full of fear, we are feeling the cold and everything. If we would be heroes, real heroes, not feeling the cold and not becoming tired, we would not make any experiences.
I go back to my times when I was a crystal hunting boy and looking, not really for the summit, looking in the gullies and wherever. It still has remained with me, and it gives me that great tension to discover when I go not as a cameraman to film an expedition, but when I go with a small group or with a discovery enterprise like the Americans in 1999. 1999, to Shark's Camp. We were there to discover a route on Hidden Peak. Then you really have that adventure to look behind the next corner. You have the adventure to see that face, and you think, can one go there? Or maybe there. Maybe there is much danger because there is an ice serac hanging above your head, so you better don't go there. So this is the real adventure. This is discovery.
Climbing is changing. And classical climbing, like Bonatti, could live it in the Alps in the 50s and in the 60s, or also Hermann Buhl. or classical climbing, which we could do in the Himalayas on difficult walls, Kukuczka, myself and others, in the 70s and the 80s is gone, because the possibilities are not anymore there. If you go today on Everest, you find many camps and many fixed ropes everywhere and many people. So how you be exposed? Exposure is part of the play. Difficulties, danger, exposure are the most important thing for having the possibility to live an adventure. But mountaineering will be evolved, it will becoming more and more a sport. I'm a little bit afraid that probably in the next generation the climbers will go not anymore for a big climb, they go for a production of a film. So they like to bring something home, but not anymore an adventure. But I am sure that on the end, on the very end of mountaineering, adventuring will be again in the front page, because adventuring is the base to having strong inner experiences. And this is the only gold we get down from the mountains. There is no gold up there, not gold medals and not material of gold. There is only the possibility to bring home the strongest possible inner experiences human beings can experience.
Wydaje mi się, że tamte czasy były bardziej romantyczne. Ludzie chodzili po górach, bo je kochali, bo je lubili być w górach. W tej chwili ludzie w góry idą po sukces. Jak obserwuję, ludzie idą tylko po sukces.
Even now, you can find places on the big mountains, not necessarily the 8,000 meter peaks, other big mountains, which are like in the old times. It depends on the people who go there. But most people will not go there. Well, it's good they don't go there. There are some, Steve House, and there are some who really are, in their mind, explorers. They have remained explorers, explorers of the vertical, yeah? Explorers of looking around the next corner. And fortunately, there are not too many. As soon as there are too many, it's not the same thing anymore. That's why I always go to these places where there are not many people. Sometimes as a cameraman, I simply had to go there where there are many people. I was cameraman of the French doing the first sync sound film on top of Everest. Of course, there were many people, but I enjoyed it much more to go to Everest from the secret side, from the Kangshung face side. We didn't make it then, but I mean, only the atmosphere was already so different. I wouldn't ever like now to go back to Everest on the normal route, not even on the north side. It must be the same. I cannot imagine, but I have seen broad peak pictures where we only had one tent, maybe two tents. Now it's all over. So that's not interesting. You can go to Broad Peak from the China side and you will be alone. And it will be like in the old days. So the golden age is not over yet. You just must find the right spot.
There are still many challenges left in the Himalayan mountains. There are more direct lines on the great faces. There are enchainments and link-ups between 8,000-meter peaks. And as technology improves with equipment, as designers improve equipment, as fitness levels improve, partially because of more focused training, and technique, climbing technique, as that improves, I think a lot of these projects will begin to fall. A lot of climbers nowadays are focusing on the 7,000-meter peaks. They're focusing on really difficult technical lines, lightweight expeditions. But there are a few, very few, Himalayan climbers who are still trying to do new things on the 8,000-meter peaks. And there are a few who are attempting some of those great lines. Sometimes they're face routes, sometimes they're enchainments, or as what's happening right now, the winter peaks in the Karakoram. There are some great faces like the K2 West face still to be climbed. And yeah, the future is still quite interesting.
Bym kibicował na pewno tym Himalajistom starszej daty, tym bardziej, no, że oni mieli wiele trudniejsze warunki organizacyjne, mieli wiele gorszy sprzęt, który często sami wytwarzali, no po prostu stawali na głowie i przy tych warunkach robili drogi w Himalajach, które do dzisiaj często nie są powtórzone, a co dopiero mówić o jakichś nowatorskich działaniach dzisiaj, gdzie sytuacja jest lepsza, można zorganizować łatwo pieniążki sponsorów, jest lepszy sprzęt, lepsze techniki wspinania i tutaj możemy iść dalej taką drogą myślenia, że te wyniki powinny być jeszcze lepsze, a tymczasem no, wyraźnie one spadły w dzisiejszych czasach.
Fortunately not everybody, but if they say who is the best, it must be the one who runs quickly. At the same time, he cannot be as secure as another one who goes slow. So, I would say, guys, go where your heart tells you to go, to discover, and forget the watch. Because, well, I think there is no sense in all this speed climbing and so on. It is like if you say, well, you say, I'm in love with the mountains. If you say, I'm in love with a woman. And if you say, well, I have done her in only 1 minute, it's ridiculous. Yeah? If you really love a woman or a mountain, you must try to understand, to discover again and again. So, speed is just out for me. And I would try to tell to the young people, sometimes you have to run. Yeah? If a thunderstorm is coming, yeah? If lightnings are coming up or what, yes, do what you can to be fast. If you are in a couloir where icefall or rockfall can become, you must be very fast. Yeah? But normally, take your time.
Przyznam szczerze, że ja w tych czasach, kiedy mój ojciec się wspinał, widziałem w tych Himalajach jakąś taką magię, coś niesamowitego. Czytając książki, rozmawiając z ludźmi na ten temat, naprawdę widać było ogromną determinację z ich strony. To, że stawiają wszystko na jednej szali, byle zrealizować swój cel. No to było na pewno godne podziwu. No, człowiek czytając o takich rzeczach, słuchając o tym, naprawdę ma dreszcz emocji i wie, że to jest coś niesamowitego, niezwykłego i chce się to obserwować, kibicować, czytać o tym. No i to jest coś w himalaizmie, co mi się podoba, natomiast no, takie wejścia dzisiejsze, komercyjne można powiedzieć, które no, jednak no, nie stawiają sobie ambitnych celów, a z jednej strony cele są o wiele słabsze, a z drugiej strony ta propaganda medialna jest coraz większa. Rodzi się taki dysonans, który w pewnym momencie no, czasami wręcz robi się chyba trochę drażniący.
The second time that I met Kukuczka was in 1989 in the spring, and it was at the Trento Film Festival in Italy. And at that time, I was directing the film festival in Banff, and I met him in order to invite him to be the speaker for the following year, or actually for that year, November of 1989. Now, Kukuczka was already very famous. He finished off his 8,000 meter peaks, and everyone in the alpine world knew who he was. And so we had lunch together and had a very nice conversation. My impressions of him were that, first of all, he didn't really look like a Himalayan superstar. He was, he just looked like a normal kind of climber. Obviously a climber, but just a normal guy. He was quite soft-spoken, fairly quiet, maybe a bit introverted, and he looked a little, I would say, tired. But we had a nice conversation, and I invited him to come to Banff, and he agreed that would be a good idea. And we enjoyed a lovely Italian lunch that went on for some time. And sadly, that was the last time I spoke with him. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was already making very specific plans for his return to the south face of Lhotse that fall, after which he was planning to come to Banff. Well, obviously he never made it to Banff.
Bardzo chciałbym zdobyć tą ścianę, bardzo chciałbym zdobyć tą górę, bo w końcu jest to, Lhotse jest pierwszym moim 8-tysięcznikiem, na którym stanąłem, co prawda wtedy drogą normalną, drogą klasyczną, a już raz byłem na południowej ścianie, tam doszedłem do wysokości 8100 metrów. Niestety zagrodziła nam bariera skalna, bardzo trudna technicznie bariera skalna.
Słuchaj, zdobyłeś już 14 8-tysięczników. W swoim życiu nie każdy alpinista może się czymś takim pochwalić. Jest tylko 2 na świecie, Mesnerity. Właściwie mógłbyś na tym zakończyć swoją karierę. Powiedz mi, dlaczego wybierasz się znów na tak trudną górę jak Lhotse na południową ścianę?
A dlaczego kończyć, skoro tak dobrze idzie?
Masz rację, tak.
To oczywiście, dlaczego? Ja po prostu nigdy nie określałem sobie czasu, kiedy mam kończyć karierę. Ja sobie nie wyobrażam czegoś takiego jak na przykład nagle zerwanie z górami. Na razie nadal mnie bawią góry, nadal mnie ciągną góry, nadal mnie ciągnie wyczyn w górach, wyczyn sportowy, no a przede wszystkim te nieprzetarte jeszcze szlaki.
It's such a pity he fell on Lhotse. He wanted just to correct destiny.
Następny szczyt